In this tutorial, you will learn Unity basics and advanced, okay, and animations and transition between them by making a simple petrol anime game object. I have explained it about how raycast works, okay, how you can detect any collision with raycast, basically a ray, and so many things, okay, of Unity game engine and C sharp coding. Basically I not gonna explain C sharp coding from depth, but you will get hang of it, okay. And I also have a 2D platformer course, okay, 2D platformer course of in Udemy. I have in the description for beginners, okay. If you just started out, you can check that course. I have link in the description of that. By making a simple 2D action platformer, you will learn Unity basics and C sharp coding, okay. So without furthering delay, let's dive into today's topic. Our topic, how you can understand Unity game engine, advanced and basics. Okay, so let's dive into it. Let's create a petrol anime, okay. So I will delete this anime game object from the hierarchy. Instead I will use another sprite sheet for our anime game object, okay. I will have a link in the description, you can go and check that out, okay. So let's do that. So I have over here in the sprites, so this is the one. So I'm gonna click on that sprite and go over to inspector, click on sprite editor in the bottom side, as you can see. So this is the attack one, so let's choose the ideal one first. Let's find ideal, attack 2, die, hot, and ideal, okay. So this is one is ideal. So instead of choosing the ideal one, we should choose run, because this enemy will just patrol around that ground, okay. So that's why we need to choose run. And we also need to create the attack when the player gets close enough to enemy game object, then enemy should play that attack animation clip, okay. So instead of choosing the ideal one, let's choose the running one. So the enemy will just patrol around it, okay. So I have over here white walk or run, you can say. So select that sprite sheet, okay, go over to inspector, click on a sprite editor. And in the so as you can see, we have multiple sprites, more than one. So we need to cut them off individually. To do so, select a single mode to sprite mode to single in the inspector, okay. Sprite mode to, sorry, it's not single, multiple, because we have more than one sprite. And choose pixel per unit to a less number, so the sprite will be large, okay, something like 16. And filter mode, we will choose point no filter, because if you take a closer look, it seems blurry. So to get rid of that, we need to choose point no filter, okay. And after doing all of these things, click on apply. Now as you can see, the skeleton looks pretty cool and no blurry, okay. And now we have to cut them off individually. So let's go to top section, says sprite in a sprite editor tab slice. So click on it and select automatic to grid by cell count, and count how many rows and column has. We can notice one column, okay, and multiple sorry, one row and multiple columns. So how many columns? 3, 6, 9, I guess 10. So let's put 10 columns and one row, okay. So and one as you can see, it's nicely cut it off, okay. So once you are done with it, click on slice and click on apply in the top right, okay, this button. Now it's cut it off individually. If I click on this arrow, as you can see, it's cut it off all the sprite individually, okay. So I will choose this scene view one more time, and let's drag this skeleton in our scene view or hierarchy. So as you can see, the skeleton sprite sheet is too much large, okay. To make it smaller, what we need to select this sprite sheet one more time and make pixel per unit to a large number, something like we have chosen 16. So let's double it, so the sprite will be little bit small, okay. And let's choose 32, and now click on this apply button one more time. I guess 32, it's pretty, so let's choose instead 25 I guess. 25. Click on this apply button one more time. Okay, 25, 25 seems pretty quite a good number. Okay, let's choose this game object, this basically this is sprite sheet, and let's rename this to something like anime I guess, anime underscore one, or petrol anime. So I will call this one petrol anime, petrol underscore anime. Okay, anime, and I want to flip this petrol anime game object towards our player. Okay, so you can do by going over to scale and do it something like minus, it will flip, but instead of doing this we have a good property for that. Okay, so basically we need to go over to sprite renderer and we can check this one x, basically horizontally we want to flip, not vertically, so we gonna choose this x. Okay, just click on that. As you can see, this just gets flipped. Okay, looking towards our player game object, so it's fine. Uh, what we want to do, we want to make the animation walking animation. Okay, to make the walking animation, what you need, you need to go over to this animation tab and then click this create button. So instead of doing this, we have shortcut way. Okay, what we need, we need to select all of the sprites, we cut it off individually, select all of them by holding down shift. Okay, and just place this all of them, just place top of this petrol anime game object. Okay, petrol anime game object, and it will create the animation right away, and you can choose a folder where you want to save your animation. So we will go to assets first. Okay, this assets, and in assets we created animation folder, we know, so we will go over to that. Okay, so let's go over to that, and we have a subfolder called anime underscore animation. If you don't have, just right click. Okay, and then new and folder, name that folder to anime underscore animation, to keep the thing, keep things all to keep all of the animation organized. Okay, so that's why we create folders, to make it more distinguishable and lot more cleaner. Okay, so let's choose that subfolder, and I will also create a subfolder for this petrol anime animation. So right click on it, then new folder. Okay, I will call petrol underscore anime anime animation. Okay, and then hit enter. So let's open that up subfolder by double clicking on it, and let's call this animation, this will be our walk animation. Okay, so that's why we will name this one animation to something like petrol anime walk. Okay, so let's call it petrol underscore anime walk. Okay, it's totally up to you, you can call it something like run. Okay, so once you are done, click on save. Okay, and now if I choose this animation tab and hit this play button, as you can see walking animation playing right after we clicking our this play button. Okay, and it's quite good. So let's add up some components to this anime game object. Firstly, we will add up one component which is rigid body 2D, which will add up a gravity to this anime game object, and the second thing, we will add up a box collider 2D. This anime game object can detect collisions, so it will just place so it will just stand top of our ground. Okay, for box collider. So I hope you get the idea. And once we created the animation, as you can see, an animator component has been added to our anime game object, and this component is responsible for playing our animation of our player game object. Okay, so it will be added once you create animation, it will be added by default. Okay, you don't need to do like over here anything. So we will add two more components. So select that petrol anime game object, click on add component, and find over there rigid body 2D. Okay, and I will click on this, and let's scale up the gravity a little bit more, something like a 3, and choose collision detection continuous and freeze the rotation about z axis. Okay, if you don't do this, if I move to transform then rotation, play around with z axis, it will be flipped like this. So it seems pretty weird. Okay, so that's why, so I will set back to 0. So that's why we need to freeze the rotation about z axis, so choose that. Okay, and now it's good. Let's add up one more component. We added up rigid body, so it will add up gravity to our game object. Okay, enemy game object, so it will fall down. But we also need to add a collider, so it will just land top of our ground. Okay, for collision detection, so select that petrol enemy game object one more time, click on add component, and find over there box collider 2D or any collider 2D you can attach. Okay, and let's edit the collider as the size of a sprite. So click on it, edit collider, and edit the collider to fit the size in this sprite. Okay, just match up the collider as the size of our enemy petrol enemy game object. I think it's pretty quite good now. Okay, and now if we hit this play button, if I take my enemy game object little bit away from our ground and hit this play button, this enemy will play walk animation right after the game starts, and it will fall down top of our ground because we added rigid body 2D for gravity, and we also added a box collider 2D for collision detection, so it will land top of our ground. Okay, like this, as you can see, and it's playing work animation. Okay, so I hope you get the idea how it works. Okay, and now what we need to create a script. Okay, we need to create a script. Before it, I guess what we need, let's add up some animation as well, like a heart. Okay, when we attack on this skeletal enemy game object, and that means this skeleton should play heart, basically damage animation clip, I guess, hurt. And once this enemy game object loses all of his health, then this enemy game object, this petrol enemy game object, should play that death animation clip. I hope you get the idea. So let's do that. Okay, so we have to find the firstly let's choose attack. So once this enemy game object get close enough to this petrol enemy game object, okay, then petrol enemy should attack. Okay, and also we need to create the die. We will leave it the heart, we don't need it. Okay, so we can leave it. So let's choose the attack one. Okay, so select the sprite sheet, go over to inspector one more time, click on sprite editor. So let's cut it off individually. Let's choose single to multiple, and pixel per unit to fit 25, and filter mode to point no filter, and click on apply in the bottom side, and let's cut them off individually. Okay, so click on slice, select automatic to grid by cell count, and choose how many columns and rows it has. I guess 10 columns and 1 row, and click on slice, and then click on apply in the top right. Okay, now if I click on this arrow, okay, as you can see, all of the sprites cut it off individually. Okay, so select all of them by holding down shift. Okay, holding down shift, and just place top of this petrol enemy game object, and let's move over to that. Firstly assets. Okay, firstly let's move to assets, I guess, enemy assets, and let's open up animation folder and subfolder of enemy underscore animation, and this subfolder petrol enemy, and let's rename this petrol enemy attack. This will be our attack animation clip of our enemy game object. Okay, so let's call it petrol enemy attack, and click on apply. Okay, and now if we move over to this animator tab and select this petrol enemy game object, as you can see, and petrol enemy attack animation has been added in our enemy this animator tab. Okay, so if I choose move to this animation and select this petrol enemy game object and choose this petrol, click on this create. Okay, petrol enemy attack, and click try to click on this play button. As you can see, attack animation just playing over again and again and again. Okay, so we also need to create one more animation. We will leave the hard one. Instead we will directly gonna make that animation clip, that is death. Okay, when enemy game object lose all of his health, we need to destroy that enemy game object. Before we destroy, enemy should play that die effect, enemy die effect. Okay, then after it will be destroyed totally. Okay, so go to project tab one more time, and let's find out the die sprite sheet over there. So over here this is die, so click on sprite editor and let's choose single to multiple and choose pixel per unit to 25. Okay, 25. Do the same thing all of the sprites, for all of the sprites. And point of filter, click on apply, click on slice and select automatic to grid by cell count. Okay, and count how many columns and rows it has. It has 3, 6, 9, 12, 13 columns. So let's put 13 columns and one row. 13 columns and one row. Click on slice and click on apply in the top right. And now if I choose this scene tab and click on this arrow or that die sprite sheet, as you can see, it's cutted off all of the sprites individually. So select all of them by holding down shift and just place it top of this petrol enemy game object. Okay, and let's move to assets first. Assets, then animation. Let's open up enemy petrol enemy and let's call this animation to enemy underscore petrol enemy petrol underscore enemy die or death, you can say something like it. Okay, I will call it death. Okay, enemy petrol underscore enemy death, and click on save. Now if I move to this animator tab, one more animation has been added, which is the attack one. And if I choose this petrol enemy, move to animation tab and choose that attack animation clip. Okay, and hit this play bit sorry, not attack, the death animation. Okay, now if I hit this play button, as you can see, death animation just playing over and again. But we don't want to loop this animation. Once the player loses all of his health, we just want to play the death animation clip of that enemy game object just only one time. Okay, so what we need, so let's move to project tab where we saved all of the animation clip. Let's go to right over there. Okay, and let's go move to petrol enemy and choose the die one or the date we recently created. Select that and go over to inspector top right. Loop time, as you can see, let's uncheck. Also the animation will not be looped now. Okay, and let's return this petrol enemy game object as a prefab, basically means copy of this game object. Okay, now if I move to prefabs folder, I don't have prefab folder, I guess. If I don't have, let's create a prefab folder. Right click on assets, create folder, let's call it prefabs. Okay, prefabs, and let's select this petrol enemy game object and drag it out there. Now it's turned blue, basically means prefab of that game object. Okay, and if I move to animator tab, so basically we need to make transition between these states. Okay, so we will create some parameters and we will set those parameters through our code. Okay, and our we will check our player position. If the player is in attack range, that means this enemy game object or this petrol enemy game object should play the basically attack, should play attack. Basically what we need, I don't think once our player game object close enough, so in that situation, instead of playing our working animation petrol enemy game object, what we want to do, we want to play that attack animation clip. Okay, so we will set this so basically we need to make transition. So right click on petrol enemy, walk to our petrol enemy attack. Okay, as you can see, and let's choose this select this arrow and let's uncheck this exit time, because we do wanna go directly once the player is close enough. We're not gonna play work animation anymore, we directly gonna play that attack. Okay, And in the left side, as you can see, in animator tab says parameter. So hit this plus icon and we need to choose a parameter in which condition we want to go. So let's choose this bool. It can be true or false. We now let's call this in range. Okay, in range. And in range, so we will set this parameter to be true, basically checked or false or unchecked. Okay, so once the this player game object is close enough, like something like over here, then this petrol enemy game object should play the attack animation clip. So basically we will choose this condition. Okay, select this arrow and let's choose transition duration to 0, scroll to the bottom side and let's choose this in range parameter to be true. Okay, to be true. Now if I hit this play button, this ideal work animation will be played as a default state when once the game get right over. Basically once the game start, this enemy just gonna petrol enemy just gonna play a work animation, as you can see. And now if I check this one, okay, the petrol enemy attack animation just playing over again and again and again. And if I uncheck this, we're not going back to this ideal work animation clip, so we also need to play that work animation clip. So basically we have chosen this condition, so where we need to set this condition to be true, okay, in range, so it will play the attack animation clip. So where we should set this parameter to true, once this player game object is like over here. If I take my player game object over here, basically means the player game object is close enough to our enemy game object. In that situation we will set this petrol parameter to true, and we know if we set this one to true, it will play the attack animation clip. Okay, but we are stuck in that attack animation clip forever, so we also need to go back to that work animation clip once the player is pretty away from this our enemy game object. Okay, something like over here. So in this situation we should not play this attack animation clip, instead we should play that work animation clip. Okay, so what we will do, we will make, so I'm gonna unplay this and let's choose this petrol enemy. Let's move to animator tab and let's right click on this, make right click on attack. Okay, and make transition back to work, and we have to choose this arrow and let's uncheck this as a time. As soon as player is not in the range, we should stop playing that attack animation clip, so that's why we untick this as exit time. And let's choose transition duration to 0, we don't want any delay. And in the scroll to the bottom side, we have to choose a condition in which condition we want to go. So we will set this in range parameter to false. Okay, basically uncheck. If it's unchecked, so it will play the work animation clip, but we have to choose that condition. So let's choose it. So hit this plus icon. So in range, now we will choose false. So if we uncheck this one, so the condition over here getting true. So if it's true, it will go over to this work animation clip. Okay, because we have chosen that condition, as you can see right over here. Now if I hit this play button and check this one in range or uncheck this one in range, it will play a work animation clip or an attack animation clip right after it. Okay, now if I check this in range parameter, as you can see work animation playing. Okay, and now if I uncheck this parameter, okay, as you can see it's going back to work animation clip. Okay, because we have chosen that condition. If I select back transition arrow, as you can see we have chosen that condition in the bottom side, in range to false. Okay, so basically we need to tweak this value in range to be we need to set this to true, false. Okay, so where we will do all of these things in our code. Firstly, we will check if this player game object is really close enough to our enemy game object. In that situation, this petrol enemy game object should attack. Okay, so I hope you get the idea. So how we can do it, as you can see an animator component has been added once we created our animation like walk, running and death. Okay, this animator component added by default. Okay, and by this component reference we can switch up animation we want, like going to attack and going back to our work. So basically we need a reference of this animator. Okay, and we will cover that. Basically we need to create a petrol anime script, okay, or anime script, something like that, and through that script we will control this in range parameter, okay, by this animator component reference. And lastly, thanks for watching this video. I hope you get the idea how it works. Okay, so I'm gonna unplay this now. Okay, so let's create a script which will control our petrol enemy. Okay, this enemy game object just gonna patrol around that ground. So let's create that. Go over to project tab, then assets, right click, create C# script. Name it to something like petrol enemy. I already created over here. So what I will do, I'm gonna select this petrol enemy game object. Let's drag it up in the hierarchy so we can see all the time, and let's select that script and just drag it to add component section. Basically attach that script to your petrol enemy game object. Okay, and let's double click that to open up in Visual Studio. Okay, so let's go to Unity one more time. So what we want to do, we want to patrol this enemy game object will just patrol around with this ground. Okay, once the enemy right over here, if I select this patrol enemy game object, or over here something like over here, so what we want to do, we will flip this enemy game object to the right side. Okay, so let's firstly let's give some ability to move around the ground. Okay, so let's open up our petrol enemy script by double clicking on it, or just open that up. Okay, so let's create a field. Okay, let's create a variable for speed, how much fast that enemy just will patrol around that ground. Okay, so let's create a speed. Okay, so let's create a public float, make it public so we can adjust through inspector float, and let's call it something like petrol enemy speed, or let's call it speed shortcut. Okay, and I will give default value of speed to that petrol enemy game object, something like around 5f or 5 unit of speed. Okay, and let's move to this update function. We know update function runs every single frame, so that's why we will use it. Okay, because we want to move that petrol enemy game object every single frame. Okay, so if I move to Unity and go over to select this petrol enemy game object, play around with X position, as you can see it will move left and right. Instead what we will do, we will go to this transform. Okay, so let's go to that transform. So we have to use this transform, and to move it left and right, let's use translate function. Okay, translate function, and this function over here will take the direction, in which direction you want to go and how much fast you want to go. As you can see, we have to pass the translation where we want to go. So we want to go to the left side. Okay, so let's pass vector2 dot left, or you can pass new vector2. Okay, new vector2, vector2, and in brackets. So we just only wanna move to the left side. Okay, so basically over like this left side, so in the X position, but it will be left side. Okay, and we don't want to move in the y axis. So what we will do over there, we will put firstly we will put -1f. Okay, -1f comma -1f in the X, so it will go if I set this to something like -1. Okay, as you can see it's going left, but we don't want to move this character in the y axis. So what we will do instead, in the y axis, let's put 0f. Basically we don't want to move in the y axis, we only moving to the left direction 1 unit by every single frame. So the enemy game object will move to the left side every single frame. Okay, You can write like new vector 2, and we know vector 2 has two axes, x axis and the y axis. So we just put x axis to the minus direction, basically the left. Okay, in the y we put 0 because we don't want to move in the y axis. Okay, and you can write like this. Instead you can do vector 2 dot left. It's also means the same thing, -1 in the x, y in the 0. Okay, so vector 2 dot left, this is the same thing as we did recently. Okay, so this is our direction. Let's multiply this direction with our some kind of speed, how much fast we want to go, or else it will go to the left side 1 unit every single frame. So it will be something like too much less speed. Okay, so let's multiply this direction, okay, with our speed. And we know speed is 5 by default we have given. So every single frame 5 unit it will go to the left side. Okay, and we also need to multiply this speed to make frame rate independence with time dot delta time. Okay, to make it independent, frame rate independence. Okay, so let's multiply this speed with time dot delta time. Okay, and let's close that up with semicolon. Control S on your keyboard to save your code. And what we will do, let's Control S to save your code. Let's move to Unity now, and we will able to see that this enemy petrol enemy game object will move to the left direction uh, every single frame. Okay, left direction every single frame with 5 amount of speed. As a default value we have given 5, so it will move to the left side direction. -1 into 5 will be -5, so that's why every single frame it will move to the left direction with -5 unit, as you can see speed. Now if I hit this play button, you will be notice that this enemy game objects will move to the left direction to 5 with 5 amount of speed. Okay, so just wait for to compile, and we should able to see. As you can see it's good, but it's pretty fast. So let's lower the value a little bit, something like 2 I guess. And now if I hit this play button, the speed will be much a little bit less, so it will move to the left direction with this amount of speed. So it will go slowly, little slowly, okay, to left direction. So wait, and as you can see the enemy going to the left direction. So if I take, so over here we get fall. Okay, but instead what we want to do, if I set this back to 0, so what we want to do, once the enemy game object right over here, I'm gonna unplay this. Okay, unplay this. If I select this enemy petrol enemy game object, and this petrol enemy game object right over here. Okay, so right over here. So what I want to do, I want to flip this enemy game object to the right direction. Okay, like this. If I select the petrol enemy game object and move to transform, then rotation in the y-axis, if I set this to -180, as you can see enemy gets flipped totally to the right direction. Okay, once the enemy is right over here. So basically we need to flip our enemy game object. So I'm gonna set this back to 0, and I will move this enemy game object right over here. Before it, what we will do, we will create a point right over here, and we will shoot out a ray from that point in the bottom side. Okay, and if that ray don't collide with this ground enemy, this ground game object, we know we added a box collider 2D or tile map collider 2D to this ground as well. So the ray will check for this collision detection, and we do know once the enemy game object right over here will be right over here, something like that, this ray will not collide with this ground game object. Okay, basically this ground collider. So in that situation what we want to do, we want to flip this enemy game object to the right direction, as you've seen. Okay, so basically we need to create a point, and from that point we will shoot out a ray, and that ray will check if the ray is really colliding with this ground or not. If it's not, that means we are over here. Over here we, okay, the ray will not collide with this ground game object, as you can see. so we need to flip this anime game object to the right direction. Okay, so I will take my petrol anime game object right over here one more time. Okay, let's open up our script by double clicking on it. So what we need to create a point. Okay, so let's move to Unity first now. Right click on this play petrol anime game object and create an empty child game object, and let's call this game object to something like detect underscore point. Okay, detect underscore point, and I will move this something like feet of our petrol anime game object. Okay, and you can choose an icon in the inspector, something like I will choose this yellow. So from this detect point we will shoot out a ray to the downside, and if that ray don't collide with this ground game object at that moment, basically we will gonna be over to our edge of the ground. So in that situation we need to flip this petrol anime game object to the right direction. Okay, so let's open up our script one more time by double clicking on it. For that what we need, and we also need to create a bool parameter. Okay, it can be true or false, so that parameter will be responsible for checking which direction we are looking for or looking into. Okay, so as you can see we're looking into left direction. Okay, so we will keep track which direction we're looking, so that's why we will create a bool parameter, and it can be true or false. Once we flip this petrol anime game object to the right side, then we will set that facing left parameter to false, because we are no longer looking to the left direction. So that's why we will set that bool parameter to false. Okay, basically that bool parameter will keep track of which direction we are looking. Okay, so let's do that. So let's open up our script one more time. Let's create a public. Okay, so make it public. It doesn't need to be public. Okay, it's totally up to you. Let's call it public bool. Okay, bool, and this can be true or false. So let's call it facing right. Sorry, facing left, facing underscore left, and by default we will give it to true value and close that up with a semicolon. Why we have given true? Because as you can see we looking to the left direction, so that's why we setting that parameter to false, to true. Okay, facing left, because we're looking to the left direction. Okay, and let's go to update function. Because why we need to move over to update function? Because we will shoot out a ray from that point. Okay, so in update function it will check every single frame if that ray is really colliding or not. Okay, so to create a ray and shoot out the ray from that point to the down direction, we have to use this physics 2d. Okay, physics 2d dot raycast, and this function over here as a first argument will take the game point or the position from where you want to shoot out the ray, and we know we will shoot out the ray from that detect point. I really apologize for background noises. Okay, so we will shoot out a ray from that detect point, okay, to the down direction. And the second thing, it will take the direction, and we know we will shoot out the ray in the down direction, as you know. Okay, so we will to put down something like vector 2 dot down, basically means in the x0, in the y it will be -1, and we know -1 will be to the down direction. Okay, and this third thing, it will take the layer mask, basically which layer you want to target or which game object you want to target, and we will do something like our player game object. And sorry, as a third argument it will take the distance, basically the length of that ray. Okay, so we will also assign that. And fourth argument, it will take the layer mask, basically which layer you want to target. So if we standing on our player game object, that means the player game object only should target that ground layer. Okay, so we will assign that ground a game object as a ground layer. Okay, so let's do that. So we need to need those variables first before we do all of basically create that ray and shoot out that ray to the down direction. We need all of the variables. Okay, so let's make it comment for now by double forward slash. Okay, so let's go to top of our class. Okay, first thing we need the point. So let's create a public transform, and we know transform is responsible for position, rotation, and scale. Okay, and let's call it something like as the name of that detect point from where we want to shoot off that ray. So let's call it detect underscore point. Okay, detect underscore point. I'm really sorry. Detect underscore point. And this and the second thing, it's need, or the basically the third thing you can call, which is the length of that ray. So let's create a public float, float distance, or you can call it something like ray distance or ray length. It's totally up to you. So let's call it ray distance, ray underscore distance, sorry, distance, distance, and close that off with semicolon. And the third and the fourth thing, it's net. The second thing is the direction, we can assign it. Okay, and the fourth thing, okay, you need to assign basically which game object you want to target. So basically we only want to target that ground, we only detect for ground. If the enemy edges or get over to edges of our ground, okay, so in that situation we need to flip our patrol enemy game object. So that's why we only want to target that ground. Okay, so let's do that. So public, let's call pass layer mask, basically layer, which layer we want to target. So let's call it something like target layer, or ground layer you can call. Close that up with semicolon, control S on your keyboard to save your code, and let's move to Unity now. So we would expect to see all of those fields just gonna pop up in the our patrol enemy script right away, and we need to assign one by one. Okay, firstly we will able to see our detect point from where we want to shoot out that ray. And the second thing, we will notice that the length of the ray we have to assign. Okay, and the fourth argument, we pass layer mask, basically which layer we want to target. Okay, so basically now as you can see detect point, it says none, basically empty. So let's drag this detect point to that detect point position, and for this ray distance let's choose 1 for now. Okay, so the length of that ray will be 1, but you can adjust upon it. And for target layer we will choose the ground. Okay, before you choose the ground, you need to assign that ground, okay, that ground as a ground layer. So how you can do it, select that ground game object, or basically my tile map. So I will go to this tile, and in the go to the inspector in the top right. Okay, top right you can able to see this layer which says default. Just click on it and click on add layer. Okay, and name the layer what you want. So I will name it something like ground. Okay, and save it by hitting enter. Okay, and let's go to that game object one more time. Okay, which is our ground. So select that ground and assign that ground as a ground layer. As you can see, says default, so we will choose this ground now. Now we assigned this ground as a ground layer now. Okay, and let's go to our patrol enemy script one more time, basically game object. Okay, so as you can see target layer, it says nothing, so we only want to check this ground. Okay, so we will choose as a target layer our ground, and we know we assigned that ground as a ground layer, so that ray will only detect that ground. Okay, so let's open up our script one more time. We assigned all of those variables now. So let's remove these two slashes. As a first argument we will pass detect point. Okay, detect point dot position, and the second thing, it will take the direction. So we will shoot out the ray in the down direction, so we have to use vector2. Okay, vector2 dot down, down. And the third argument, it will take the distance, or you can say length of the ray. Okay, so we will pass ray distance or ray length you can call. And the third argument, it will take the layer mask, basically which layer or which game object you really want to target. And we know as a target layer we assign it that ground. Okay, so let's pass it target layer, target layer, and sorry, target layer, sorry, really sorry, target layer. Okay, and close that up with semicolon. So this function over here can be true or false if that ray, okay, if that ray really colliding with that ground game object, so this function over here will be true, else this function will be false. So basically when the ray is not colliding with the ground, basically the enemy game object is edge of the ground, so the ray will not collide, we know. So in that situation we need to flip our patrol enemy game object. Okay, so let's store the result if you, okay, into a variable or into a container, you can say. Okay, so this function over here will return us true or false. If it's true, basically means the petrol enemy game object is still on that ground. Okay, but if it's false, we know the enemy game object is edge of the our ground game object. Okay, so let's store it into a raycast hit 2D variable. Okay, because this is an ray. Okay, so raycast hit 2D, and let's call it something like hit underscore info, and let's set equal to this. So this hit info can be true or false. Okay, if that ray really colliding with that ground game object, means this hit info will be true, else if this hit info is for, if the ray is not colliding with the ground, we know, so the petrol enemy game object will be at end of the our ground. Okay, so this hit info will be false. So what we will do, so in the next line we will check if hit info, okay, if hit info equals false, false, and make some curly brackets. Basically if hit info false is equals to false, basically we checking if that ray is really not colliding with that ground. Okay, and we know if that ray is not colliding with that ground, so this function over here will give us for a false statement, and this hit info will be false because we directly setting it. And over here we checking if hit info is equals to false, basically that ray is not colliding with our ground. So what we want to do in that situation, we want to flip our enemy game petrol enemy game object to the right direction. Okay, so what we will do, let's firstly, if it's really working or not, let's print out a message in the console. So debug.log we have to type. Okay, and let's say we are not on the ground. You can type any message you want to see and close that up with semicolon, control S to save your code. And let's move to Unity now. If that ray, okay, if that ray is not colliding with the ground, what we doing, we just printing out a message in the console says we are not on the ground. Okay, you can type whatever message you want to just wanna see. Select the console and hit this play button in the top, and you are gonna able to see that. Okay, so just wait for to compile. When it's done, check it. But the problem is that we're not able to see our ray. We created the ray, but we're not able to see it. To draw the ray or to see it, we have to use another function in Unity. It's called, so let's go to bottom of our script over here. We have to type on draw. Okay, on draw gizmo selected. And this function over here will draw the ray from where we want to draw. To draw the ray, we have to use gizmos. Okay, gizmos dot draw ray, and this function over here, make first bracket. This function over here will take the point from where you want to draw that ray. So we do know we want to draw that point from that detect point. So let's pass that detect point out over here. Okay, detect point dot position. And the second thing, it will take the direction, and we know we will draw the ray in the down direction for checking our ground. So we have to pass this vector2 dot down. Okay, vector2 dot down, and let's multiply this this direction with our the distance of the length, sorry, the length of the ray. Okay, let's multiply so we can see able to that ray. Okay, so let's multiply this with our ray underscore distance and close that up with semicolon. So this function will draw the ray from that point. Okay, as you can see, detect point dot position, we pass the point from where we want to draw that ray and the direction of that ray, which is the down, and we multiply with the length or the distance of the ray to that direction, so we can able to see the length of the ray or the distance. Okay, but over here this function can give us a error, because if you don't drag, okay, if you don't drag this detect point out over here to detect point slot, basically if the detect point is empty, so as you can see, this function will still try to find that detect point and we will draw the ray from that detect point position. Okay, but if you haven't assigned it, basically that detect point is empty, basically this one says none, which is empty, so this function will still try to find that point. But we do know if it's if you don't assign which is empty, so in that situation it will throw us an error. So before we draw the ray from that detect point, we need to check if we assign it or not, basically if we drag it that detect point to detect point slot or not. Okay, so before we draw the ray, so we will check if detect point, okay, if detect point is equals to null. Okay, if that is the case, if that is the case, so what we want to do, we will basically, if detect point is equals to none, basically that field which is the detect point which is empty, basically none, so none, so in that situation we should not draw that ray from that detect point. Okay, so basically we will type return, and we know after return whatever line of code you write, it will not be executed. So this function over here will not run, so it will stop drawing that ray from that detect point. Okay, because the detect point, if the detect point is empty, and if it's not, then this function will draw that ray from that point. Okay, so and you can choose any color you want from for that detect point, or for that ray, sorry, for that. So to choose a color, you just have to type gizmos. Okay, gizmos dot color, and you have to set equal to, you can choose any color you want, so something like I'm gonna choose a yellow. Okay, so I will pass over here color. Okay, color dot yellow. Okay, so the ray and close that off with semicolon, so the color of that ray will be yellow. Okay, so control S on your keyboard one more time, and let's move to Unity. Now we will able to see the ray will be drawn from that detect point to the down direction with color of yellow as we assign it. If you if you don't choose any color, it will be white. Okay, by default. So but we have chosen a color which is yellow, so the ray will be yellow. So as you can see, the ray has been drawn from this detect point to the down direction with this amount of ray distance, but we can adjust like this. As you can see, something like I want something like zero point 0.2, I guess. Zero point 0.2, it's pretty small, something like 0.3. As you can see, we are able to see our ray now. So if this petrol enemy game object right over here, as you can see, in this situation this ray will not collide with this ground. Okay, basically this ground, as you can see, something like over here at edge of the, something like over here, I guess. So this will not detect, so that message will pop up in the console. We store it, we know if hit info equals to false, basically if this ray is not colliding with the ground, then in that situation we just printing out the message says something like we type we are not on the ground. Okay, so let's take this petrol enemy game object right over here. Okay, now if I hit this select this console, let's clear it and hit this play button. Once the enemy get edge of the ground right over here, something like that, this ray will not collide with that ground. Okay, so in that situation we just printing out the message in the console says ray. Okay, I guess as you can see we are not on the ground. Okay, if I set this back to right click and reset, so as you can see, if I clear the console and jump, so if this a petrol enemy, so right over here, so as you can see the message gets popped up right after the ray not collided with the ground. Okay, So over here, something like if I select this petrol enemy right over here, so as you can see in this situation, this ray will not collide with this ground. So what we doing, we just printing out the message. Okay, okay, so instead of printing out message, what we want to do, we want to flip our character. And we know if we flip, if we select this petrol enemy, then go over to transform in the inspector, then rotation, and set y to minus 180, as you can see it will flip to the right direction. Okay, it will flip to the right direction. So what we want to do, let's set back to 0. So basically we need to move over to this transform and we have to set the angles. Okay, so let's go to our script one more time. So over here, if hit info equals to false, basically the ray is not colliding with that ground. Okay, so what we will do, and we will check at the same time if, okay, if we are edge of the ground, basically the ray is not colliding with that ground. Okay, let's suppose this is ground. Okay, the ray is not colliding with this ground, so basically the enemy right over here at the edge end of the our ground. So so over here, okay, and we will check at the same time, and if facing, okay, if facing left is true, is equals to true, basically we created a bool parameter, we know, which will keep track of which direction we looking, and by default we set facing left to true, basically we looking to the left direction. So we checking at the same time if the ray is not colliding and we looking to the left direction. Okay, so in that situation what we need, so make some curly brackets. So what we will do, firstly we will flip our character, basically we need to set that y. So we know we have to go over to that transform, then dot Euler angles we have to type. Okay, and set equal to new vector 3. Okay, new vector 3, and we know vector 3 has three axes, x axis, okay, x axis, y axis, and the z axis, and close that off with semicolon. So we will put we will only if we want to flip, as we know, if we set to minus 180 f, it will look to the right direction. So let's set that, so minus 180 f, so it will flip to the right direction. And let's put x to 0, we don't need to do anything with this axis. Okay, let's put it 0. So we flip our character to the right direction. Okay, so in this situation we will no longer able to look to the left direction. So basically after flipping our character totally to the right direction, we will set facing left parameter to false now. Okay, because we not looking in that direction. Okay, so let's set if facing left, we will set it to false, because in that situation we looking to the right direction, so that's why this facing left will be false. Okay, so let's set equal to false, close that off with semicolon, control S on your keyboard to save your code, and let's move to Unity now. So this enemy game object will flip to the left direction. Okay, so just wait for to compile. So just wait, and now if I hit this play button, you will able to see this petrol enemy will get flipped once the petrol enemy gets at edge of the our ground. This will flip right away to the right direction, and after flipping we setting this facing left parameter to false, basically unchecked, as you can see. But the problem is that if I just over here, as you can see, we need to flip as well if we are not if we are over here. So the petrol enemy game object should be just petrol around that basically that ground, just petrol around. Okay, so basically if we are over here, if I take my petrol enemy game object and flip to the right direction minus 180. Okay, so right over here we need to flip this character one more time to the left direction. Okay, basically what we need to set back this to 0. Okay, as you can see, if we set this to y axis my to 0 once again, it will flip to the left direction, and after flipping we will set this facing left which will be unchecked, we will check this one, basically true. So once again we looking to the left direction, so that's why we will set this facing left parameter to fall to true one more time. Okay, So I will leave this. Okay, so let's go to script one more time. Else if, okay, else if we will check if facing left. Okay, if facing left is equals to false. Okay, basically we're not looking to the right left direction, we're looking to the right direction. We know once we flip we will go to the right direction, and we're looking to the right direction, so we will get a edge of the ground after some amount of time, okay, to right direction. If we are over here, so we need to set back one more time to the left direction, so basically we need to flip. So we just checking, firstly we checking over here, we doing inside if hit info is equals to false. Basically that ray is not colliding with our ground, and over here we checking if not colliding with that ground, and we looking to the right direction, basically means facing left is false. So in that situation what we will do, make some curly brackets. So let's copy this line of code by Control C, okay, and Control V for paste it. So firstly we will go to transform, then Euler angles, and we will set this one -180 to 0, and we know if we set this to 0 it will flip to the left direction one more time. And what we need after flipping our character to the left direction, we need to set this facing left parameter to true now, because in that situation we will look towards to the left direction. Okay, so let's set this facing left parameter uh, to true one more time, and let's Control as to keyboard to save your code, and let's move to Unity now. Okay, so just wait for to compile, and let's see what's happening. Okay, when it's done, hit this play button in the top. Okay, hit this play button in the top. So we gonna able to see that our petrol enemy game object will flip once the enemy gets at edge of the ground, and also in the right direction as will do the same thing doing in the left direction. Okay, the petrol enemy game object. So just wait and see the result. Oh, sorry, wait, I will make the jump a little bit higher. So you can pause the game clicking over here in the top, the pause button. Okay, and you can choose value, something 15 I will choose for, and click on that button one more time to play it again. As you can see, we can jump a little bit more now. So we will able to see this enemy game object will flip over here to the left direction. As you can see, it's get flipped. Okay, so it's really working. Okay, so what we need to do in the next thing is that once the enemy is too much close to our player game object, or this player game object is too much close to this enemy game object, in that situation we should stop our petrol enemy game object. Instead of playing walking, we should play attack animation, and we have to stop this petrol enemy game object walking. Okay, we have to stop right there. So let's open up the script one more time, the petrol enemy. Okay, so what we need player position. We need to check if the player is close enough to our enemy game object. In that situation we need to stop our petrol enemy. Okay, so we need a player position to check if the player is close enough to enemy game object or not. Okay, so basically we need the transform component of this player game object, which is responsible for, as you can see, position, rotation and scale. Basically we need a transform reference of this player. So let's go to script one more time, and let's make a public field. Okay, make a public, let's call it transform. That is a transform component, so that's why we have to type transform, and let's call it sorry, this will be public, not public. Okay, public transform, transform basically means position, you can call. Okay, let's call it player underscore position. Okay, player underscore position, or you can call it player. Okay, it's totally up to you. And Control S to save your code, and let's move to Unity now. we would expect to see an petrol enemy script. Underneath our petrol enemy script, an empty field of player position will appear. So what we need to do, we need to drag this petrol player transform right over there, okay, into that slot. So we will have the reference, so we can check that the player game object is close enough to enemy or not, okay. So just wait for to compile, and when it's done, select the petrol enemy game object and drag the reference right there, okay. So just wait for to compile, and if I select this petrol enemy game object, as you can see in petrol enemy script underneath says player position, which says none, basically empty. So what we need, select this player, okay, and drag it out there. Now we have the player transform, basically means player position. Now we can check if the player is close enough to enemy or not, okay. So let's go to script one more time. So before we move, okay, before we move, attack or flip the character, firstly we want to check if the player is close enough to enemy game object or not, okay, before we do all of these things like moving our enemy game object. So let's go to top of our update function, and we will check over here if player, okay, if player position, player underscore position, sorry, we have to use this instead, vector2, vector2 dot distance, okay. And over here it will take two arguments, okay, basically vector a, vector b, basically two position, and it will compare between them, okay. So it will take two position and will compare between them. So firstly we want to pass our own position, which is the petrol enemy current position. So if we move to Unity, as you can see, transform dot position is the current position of this enemy petrol enemy position. So let's pass it. So transform dot position means the current position of enemy, comma, and it will take one vector b, basically the second position, okay. So let's pass our player position as a second argument, okay. So let's pass player underscore dot position, okay. And if the distance between them, as you can see, vector2 dot distance function takes two position and it will compare between them. So we pass our own position of petrol enemy as well as player position, so it will compare between them. If the position between them is lesser than or equal to some kind of something like attack range, you can call, or you can pass something like 5f, basically between them 5f is lesser than or equal to the distance between them is 5, then what we want to do, we want to attack on our a player game object, basically a player is close enough to our petrol enemy game object, okay. So make some curly brackets. So instead of making this, let's make a variable for it, okay, and we can adjust the field in the inspector, so that's why, okay. So I will call public float, okay, that will be float, and make it public so we can adjust through inspector. And we have to call it something like call attack underscore, sorry, attack underscore range, okay, range. And by default you can give any value, but I will leave it, and I want to set the value in the inspector, okay. So that's why it you can set something like 2 5, it's totally up to you. So I will set in inspector, so that's why I'm leaving it. So let's pass this 5f to this attack range, and attack range we can specify like 1 2. So let's suppose we specify 2, okay. So the distance between our player and enemy, if the distance between is lesser than or equal to 2, oh, okay, something, some kind of this player, you can see this player and enemy, and the distance between is 2 or lesser than 2. In that situation, what we want to do, we want to play the attack animation, and we don't want to move our character to the basically we don't move to want to move our petrol enemy game object. We want to stop right there, and instead we should attack on our player game object, okay. So let's do it. So if it the distance between is lesser than or equal to attack range, if that is the case, what we want to do, we want to play the attack animation. So we made those animation. If I go to animator tab, select this petrol enemy, as you can see petrol enemy. So basically we need to set this in range parameter to true, and we know if we set this one to be true, it will play the this petrol enemy attack animation over again and again. Okay, because we have chosen this condition, as you can see, true. So and what we need an this animator component reference, then we can switch up any animation we want. Okay, basically we need a reference this animator component of our petrol enemy game object, then we can set this in range parameter to true or false depending upon if the player is close enough or not. Okay, so let's go to script one more time. So before we basically play that attack animation, we need the reference of that animator component. Okay, so let's make it private. It doesn't need to be public, private, and we know the component type is animator, so we have to type animator, and you have to name it, let's call it animator. Okay, animator, and we will go to start function. Okay, and we know start function get called one time in the start of the game. Okay, right before the game start it will call this start function get called when the game start, and it just called one time. So in the start of the game we want to grab the reference of this basically this animator component. Okay, then we can switch up the value. Okay, so let's go to animator, and animator equal to, we will say this dot get component. Basically it's referencing a whole itself, and in brackets basically in arrows we have to pass the component name, which is animator. So let's pass animator. Okay, and make first bracket, close that up with semicolon. So we getting the component, as you can see, this dot get component animator, and we storing this animator component into this animator variable, as you can see, animator equal to this dot get component animator. Now we have the basically we have the reference of this animator component in the start of the game. Basically we have the reference now. Now we can switch up the value we want. Okay, so in the start of the game we grabbed the reference, as you can see. Okay, so let's go to over here. So we will move to this animator component dot, we have to use this function, it's called set bool. Okay, because this is a bool parameter, as you can see in range. Okay, and in quotation we have to pass the same name as we did in animator tab, which is in range parameter. We have to spell it correct, else it will not work. Okay, make sure you spelling it correct. So in range, so this is in range, sorry, in range. And second thing, it will take the value you want to set. So if we set this one to be true, we know it will play the attack animation of petrol enemy game object over again and again and again. Okay, so in this case we want to set to true. Okay, so let's pass through and close that up with semicolon. So firstly we checking the distance between our player and enemy. If the distance between is lesser than attack range, and we can specify attack range something like, let's assume something like 1. Okay, so the distance between our player and enemy, if the distance between is lesser than distance between them is 1, then what we doing, we just going over to this animator. Okay, basically this animator, and we setting this parameter to be true, and we know if we set this one to be true, it will play the attack animation over again and again and again. Okay, so that's why and so control S on your keyboard to save your code. And after playing attack animation, what we want to do, we should stop moving our petrol enemy game object. As you can see, we still moving our enemy game objects. Okay, petrol enemy game object to the left side. Okay, we still just moving that character. So what we want to do, so the player is close enough, so we will type return over here. Basically after return, you know, whatever line of code you write, it will not be execute, it will not be call. So the over here, as you can see, this function is responsible for moving our petrol enemy game object. Okay, but we type over here return. So after return, whatever you write, so this will not be called. So the petrol enemy game object will be stopped right there, and firstly it will play the attack animation, and then it will stop right there. As you can see, we type return, and we know after return, whatever line of code you right, it will not be execute, it will not be call out. And we know this function is responsible for moving our character, okay, petrol enemy. So we typing return, so this line of code will not call, or this function will not call. So that's why the enemy game petrol enemy game object will stop right there. Okay, so control S on your keyboard to save your code, and let's move to Unity now. And we have to assign the distance between them, attack range. It can be, it's totally up to you how much you want. I will set it something like 3 or 4 or 5. If you set a bigger number, so the distance between them will check a bigger. Okay, so the enemy will stop pretty far away, and over there it will play the attack animation. So we will choose a less number. So attack range, let's suppose something like 3. Okay, I'm gonna take my player game object far from this enemy now, and let's hit this play button. uh, Hit this play button, and let's see what's happening. Okay, okay, as you can see, enemy get stopped over here because we have chosen 3. Okay, but you can choose a smaller number. Okay, if you choose a smaller number, something like 1, so the enemy will be over here, something like that. Okay, firstly it's checking. If I take my okay, so if I hit this play button one more time, firstly it's checking if the player gets close enough to this petrol enemy game object, or this petrol enemy game object get close enough to this player game object, like 3 attack range as you seen. Okay, so this is 3. So the distance between them checking, as you can see, if the distance between them is lesser than or equal to 3. Okay, as a attack range we assign it 3. So in that situation what we doing, we just playing the attack animation over again and again, and we type return. Basically we just stopping moving our petrol enemy game object. But the problem is that when we are when the distance between them is not lesser than or equal to like this. Okay, so if I so as you can see, it's still playing that attack animation over again and again. So we need to stop that. Okay, when we are not even close to our enemy game object. Okay, basically we are far from the petrol enemy game object. So in that situation we should not play that attack animation, instead we should play the work animation. Okay, so in else condition, else we will type, else the distance between them else the distance between them enemy player and petrol enemy game object, it's pretty far away or greater than this attack range. So in that situation we need to play the work animation of petrol enemy game object instead of attack. Okay, so we will go over to that animator one more time. Okay, and we have to set that bool function, and we know in quotation we have to pass the parameter name which is in range. Okay, and we will set this one to false. Okay, false, and close that off with semicolon. Firstly we checking if the distance between player and enemy game object is lesser than or equal to this attack rate. So in that situation we playing attack animation, and we stop moving that petrol enemy game object. But if the distance between them, else the distance between them and a player game object and petrol enemy game object is not lesser than or equal to this attack range. So in that situation what we doing, we going to animator, and we setting that in range parameter. Okay, this in range parameter to false. Okay, as you can see, and we know if we set this one to false, this in range, it will play the walk animation of petrol enemy game object. Okay, so now if I hit this play button, control S on your keyboard to save your code, and let's move to Unity. And once this player game object is pretty far away, that basically petrol and game object. Okay, petrol game object, so it will play the work animation. So petrol enemy will play work animation instead of attack. Okay, So we should hope to see. So I will choose this attack range a smaller number, as you said. If this attack range, if you choose a smaller number, so the distance between will check too much close. Okay, close enough, something like I'm gonna set 1.2. So enemy will stop right over here instead of something like over here 4.3. Okay, 4.3, something like over here. So if you choose a smaller number, so the distance between them will check a smaller distance. Okay, attack range, something like that. Okay, now if I hit this play button and see the result, just wait and see the result, what's really happening. Okay, so just wait. As you can see, it is the distance between is perfect now, 1.2. So basically this condition over here getting true, the distance between them, our enemy position and player position, is lesser than or equal to 3. Basically the distance between them is 1.2. Okay, something, this distance, basically this distance. Okay, so in that situation we playing the attack animation, and we stop we moving we just stopping moving our player, sorry, enemy game object, patrol enemy game object. Okay, so I hope you get the idea. Now if I just the distance between get large, if I just move our player game object pretty far away that patrol enemy game object, in that situation this enemy will play the walk animation instead of attack. Okay, something like this. Okay, if I move this character, as you can see, when the distance between is not lesser than or equal to attack range, this enemy just playing that attack animation. Okay, so the problem is that over here, as you can see, this enemy not looking toward us, this player game object. Instead it's just looking to the right direction and it's playing the attack animation. Okay, so we also need to flip this character to the direction player is looking. Okay, and the player is standing. Okay, in that direction we need to flip this patrol enemy game object. Okay, to do so, over here, as we can see, if we move to script one more time, as we can see that we firstly checking the distance between them, and if it's close enough, then we playing the attack animation. And we also need to check, okay, over here we will check, okay, before we play that attack animation, we will check the distance between them. Okay, so if I select this player game object, so if I take this over here, as you can see, the player position in the x-axis, okay, horizontally, will be greater than this enemy position, as you can see. So we need to flip this patrol enemy game object, a game object in the direction the player game object is standing. Okay, in that direction, basically we need to flip this character to that direction. Okay, to flip it, so we will firstly check, okay, we will check if transform, okay, transform dot position dot x basically means the current position of patrol enemy game object in the x axis or horizontally. If it is lesser than, okay, if it's lesser than our player position, so basically we going over to player position then dot x. Okay, dot x, basically we going to this player, okay, player game object, then position, then this x. If the distance if is it lesser than, as you can see, it will be the player position in the x axis, as you can see, will be greater than this enemy position in the x axis. Okay, as you can see, and at the same time this enemy is looking to the left direction, as you can see, this enemy will looking to the left direction. So we need to flip this character to right direction. Okay, this patrol enemy game object. Okay, so we will check the second condition, if facing left. Okay, facing left is true, basically we the patrol enemy game object is looking towards to the left direction. Okay, at the same, which firstly checking if the position of our enemy game object in the x axis or horizontally, if it's lesser than player position in the x axis, as you can see, it will be our player position in the x axis is greater than this player enemy position in the x axis, basically horizontally. So and we are checking, and if the enemy is looking looking to the left direction. As you can see, it will look to the left direction. What we need to flip this enemy game of a petrol enemy. Okay, so basically we need to go over to this rotation, and we need to set it minus 180. As you can see, if we set this to minus 180, so it will look towards the direction player game object is standing. Okay, and then we need to set this facing left to false, because in this situation where this petrol enemy game object looking to the right direction, we no longer looking to the left direction, so that's why we will set that facing left parameter to false. Okay, so let's do it. So I will set this to 0 once again. Okay, and let's firstly we're checking, so make some curly brackets. And so firstly what we need to flip our game object. Okay, petrol enemy. So let's go to transform, then Euler angles, and we know Euler angles have 3, so we will set equal to new vector 3. And vector 3 has three axis, x axis, y axis, and the z axis, and close that off with semicolon. So as you've seen, if we set this y to minus 180, the petrol enemy will game object will flip to the right direction. Okay, so let's set this, so minus 180 f, and for z axis let's put 0, and the same thing will do for x axis. Okay, and after flipping our character, we need to set facing left parameter to false, because we will no longer able to look to the left direction, we will look to the right direction. Okay, so that's why after flipping our character, we will set this facing left parameter to false. Okay, false, facing left parameter to false, and close that up with semicolon. Sorry, control S to save your code, and let's move to Unity now. So we hope we will able to see this enemy game object will flip the player game object standing in that direction. Okay, we hope to see that. So just wait for to compile. When it's done, hit this play button in the top and see the result, what's really happening. Okay, so just wait. So if I take my enemy game object, something like petrol enemy right over here, and this player game object over here, something like this, we should able to see this enemy game petrol enemy game object will flip to the right direction. Okay, so let's do that. Hit this play button. Firstly we checking the distance between them. If it's lesser than attack range, then we playing that attack animation, so enemy should flip to that direction as well. Okay, we should able to see this will flip. I don't know why. Okay, just wait. I'm gonna make the jump height a little bit higher, something like 15, and let's hit this play button one more time. We should, as you can see, enemy gets flipped. The problem is that we're not flipping to the left direction now. Okay, we also need to flip to the left direction. Basically we need to go over to this petrol enemy game object. Okay, then transform, then rotation or Euler angles, we need to set back to 0. And if we set back to 0, as you can see, petrol enemy game object flips to the left direction. Okay, flips to the left direction, and after that we need to set this facing left parameter to true. Basically, as you can see, this petrol enemy will game object will look towards to the left direction. Okay, so that's why we need to flip this basically we need to flip this petrol enemy game object facing left parameter to true now. Basically petrol enemy game object looking to the left direction, so that's why we will set this facing left parameter to true. Basically this one checked. Okay, so let's do that. So we will move to script one more time, and over here we will check else if. Okay, else if something like if the else if I take my this player game object over here, and petrol enemy game object looking to the right direction, basically minus 180, so in this situation, as you can see, our enemy position in the x axis will be greater than our this player position in the x axis. As you can see, enemy position will be greater than our player position, and in that situation, if we looking to the right direction, so firstly what we will do, firstly we will check the position. Okay, we will compare them. So as you can see, the enemy position in the x will be greater than this player position in the x axis, basically horizontally. Okay, and at the same time this enemy petrol enemy game object looking to the right direction. So what we need to flip the character to the left direction. Okay, this petrol enemy game object, basically we need to set this minus 180 to 0, so it will flip to the left direction, and after that we will set that facing left parameter to true one more time. Okay, one more time. So as you can see, it will look towards to the left direction. Okay, so that's why. So let's go to script one more time. Else if, firstly we will check our enemy position. So transform dot position dot x, if it's greater than our player position. Okay, player position dot x. So basically we checking if the enemy position is greater than player position. As you can see over here, enemy position is our greater than this player position, and enemy will be like this. Okay, so what we need to flip this character to the left direction. Okay, basically we need to set this back to 0, so it will flip to the left direction. Okay, so if that is the case, and at the same time will at the same time is petrol enemy game object is looking to the right direction. Okay, right direction. So if facing left, okay, is facing left equals to false, basically we not looking to the left direction, we looking to the right direction. Firstly we checking that position in the x axis. Okay, as you can see, if our enemy position in the x axis are greater than our player position in the x axis, at the same time we not looking to the left direction. Okay, as you can see, basically we looking to the right direction. So in that situation what we will do, so make some curly brackets. So firstly let's copy this line of code. Okay, control C, copy it, and control V for pasting it over here. So firstly we need to set back to 0 f, and we know if we set this to 0 f, so the petrol enemy game object will look towards to the left direction one more time. Okay, and after flipping to the left direction our petrol enemy game object, what we need to do, we need to set this facing left parameter to true. Basically we no longer looking to the right direction, now enemy looking to the left direction. So that's why we will set this facing left parameter to true now. Okay, so let's set this. Okay, so control S on your keyboard to save your code. Okay, and let's move to Unity now, and let's hope this will work. Okay, so just wait and see the result. I will manually set this up. Okay, I will set this to minus 180, and I will uncheck this facing left, basically false. I want to check if the play this enemy game objects really flipping to the left direction or not. So I will test. So let's put minus 180 in the uh, y, and I will uncheck this facing left. Basically as you can see we're looking to the right direction, so that's why I am setting this facing left parameter to false, and I flip it, and we should able to see this enemy game of petrol enemy game object will flip to the left direction, because the position of the petrol enemy in the x axis is greater than our player position in the x axis, basically horizontally. And at the same time we checking if we not looking to the left direction. As you can see our petrol enemy game object, it's not looking to the left direction. So what we doing in that, we flipping our character to the left direction, and we setting basically left direction, and we setting that facing left parameter to true one more time. Okay, so let's hope it this work. So hit this play button in the top, and let's see this petrol enemy game object will flip to the left direction now. Okay, so just wait for to compile, and when it's done, so as you can see enemy petrol enemy gets flipped to the left direction. Okay, now if I just run away from our enemy game object, okay, and if I get close enough we would able to see. Okay, so just wait, let's, as you can see enemy gets flipped, and let's check for to right direction. If I get, as you can see also to the right direction, this petrol enemy game object is looking. Okay, so I'm gonna unplay this now.